Aimed the spotlight she asked me not to hit. I make stories visible without being seen. That's what a lighting designer does if you boil it down. Teach light when to tell the truth and when to lie. My life is cue stacks and gel swatches. DMX universes mapped like constellations only 6 people believe in. I love the moment a rehearsal hall inhales when the first focus hits right. A body walks into a cone you built and becomes inevitable. Arden used to stand dead center of the stage and test my beams with her cheekbones. "You make faces brave," she'd say, rolling her shoulders, letting the light skim the collarbone like a question. She choreographs the way a good thief walks, deliberate, amused, dangerous if ignored. We fit because we could both spend a whole day pretending timing is religion and then come home and set every clock wrong on purpose. The lanyard started it. Black ribbon, laminated pass. The theater's logo impressed with that fake modesty graphic designer's grant to institutions. It lay on our kitchen table after I did a late hang, tossed down with my multi-tool and the tiny screw that had chewed through my pocket unnoticed. Arden was home before me for once, shower going, music from the bathroom, a playlist she uses when the day left her feeling made of static. I picked up the pass and felt the tacky edge, where someone had peeled a sticker off badly. On the back in black Sharpie, someone had written "Keep out of light." Under it, a smiley face with the dot of the eye filled in, a habit I know from the notepads around our place, from shopping lists and choreography notes stuck to mirrors. But the handwriting wasn't hers. It wasn't mine. Sharp, masculine, hurried. A director's hand, someone who believes the world will wait for a better sentence if he says it fast enough. The front of the pass said guest. The name blank was filled in with block letters. A. Vale, Arden's professional last name. Our friends joked that she had married the letter and not me. The show code in the corner matched the new piece in residency, the one she had been pushing a boulder uphill for since January. The one that finally got a grant and a room and a director people send coffees to without being asked. I could have ignored it. I could have decided the note meant what notes mean in theaters, an instruction scribbled while moving, keep out of light. We write that when an object shouldn't glow before it can be useful. Instead, I rubbed my thumb over the marker and felt the ink bite just deep enough. My stomach did that rigging sway it does when a line slips an inch and then holds. I set the pass back down. The shower stopped. She called my name the way people who know where you live don't need to shout. When she walks from steam into a cold room, she looks like a decision. Towel twisted at the light pole of her throat, hair up, sternum catching whatever light forgot to turn away. She kissed me in passing, mouth warm, apology for nothing in it. She reached for the lanyard without looking, muscle memory, and then saw my face looking at her hand. "It got me through the house without questions," she said easily. "You know how the ushers get when a rehearsal blocks their route to gossip." "What's keep out of light?" I asked, equally easy. We both speak fluent calm. Her eyes did a small math I almost missed. "Prop note," she said. "The director didn't want the mirror to flash the audience. He writes on everything." "On you," I said, and smiled because my mouth chooses cruelty when my heart is trying to take attendance. Her smile back was professional. "On passes," she corrected. "Your beam plots have more notes than a string quartet." We ate leftover noodles because our refrigerator worships patience. She told me a story about a dancer who pretends to hate being lifted and a producer who forgets to say please. I told her my back hates that fourth electric and lied about how many hours I'd been in a harness under a catwalk thinking about nothing noble. We went to bed like a team who knew the next day wanted to kill us and had our funeral jokes ready. At 3 in the morning, I woke up to the ghost of a spotlight on the bedroom ceiling, just the streetlight making angles through a gap, nothing a rational mind should mistake for a cue. My brain doesn't default to rational after midnight. I watched the light travel, slow and patient, and thought about how wrong that note looked on her name. Keep out of light. Arden has always needed light like oxygen. If the director had said avoid exposure, he meant, what, protect the reveal? Or did he mean what men mean when they think metaphors are not indictments? Stay hidden. We run tech like a siege. 12-hour days broken by notes and bad coffee, everyone's best version of themselves slowly scraping off. I live on the catwalk in tech. The stage is a map we keep redrawing below me. The director, Julian, planted himself near the front-of-house desk like a weather system. He is the sort of charming that borrows your jacket and makes you believe you offered. In the dark, you can hear which laughs are real. Arden's laugh is how you know if a room deserves its chairs. That week, she used the one that pays rent, not the one that gives you oxygen. Q54, I said into the headset. Stand by. The good SM answered in my ear, steady as a decent pulse. Standing. We ran the duet in the middle, the risky one with the chair and the trust fall that only works if gravity decides to be polite. My cue hit and pulled the light up slowly so the chair drifted into existence instead of showing its hand. Arden caught her partner clean and made it look like falling was a cooperative sport. Julian clapped once. Can we hold? He called. Let's not blind the moment. Micah, can you not point the sun at her throat? I want to keep her out of light for this chunk. My name in his mouth felt like a dare. On Channel 2, the SM told me to breathe. We can shape, I said calmly into God, but you hired her face for a reason. Her body, he said, laughing like a man with a joke no one had the energy to roast. Don't make it poetry. On headset, someone made the softest O that isn't a syllable. Arden rolled her shoulder and reset the chair as if that hadn't just been an insult disguised as strategy. She looked up toward the booth, toward the catwalk I disappear into, and even though she couldn't see me, I stepped back because light is a language and I didn't want to accidentally speak. In the break, I climbed down to the deck because your body needs ground when your head is trying to levitate into bad decisions. She was stretching in the wing, ankle hooked over the Marley, hip open the way rehearsals make you honest. Hey, I said, which is the opposite of content. She exhaled, smiled, said hey back like a truce. We stood in the not light of the wing, the stage talking to the empty house the way I like when no one valuable is trying to be audible. He writes on everything, I said, nodding toward her pass. She glanced at it, still around her neck like a collar she'd forgotten to unbuckle. It reminds him he's in charge, she said. He's anxious about the reveal in the third section. And about yours, I said, rubbing a thumb across the pass where the ink had bled a hair into the laminate. She held my gaze and let the beat stretch exactly long enough to be telling. He likes secrets, she said. They make him feel like the story is his. You giving him any? I asked. I dance, she said simply. Everything else is furniture. We went back to Siege. The lights did their job. Julian called for a soft edge on the breakaway window and then changed his mind. In a director you haven't kissed, indecision is a job hazard. In one you have, it's either addiction or manners. I didn't know which past applied and hated my brain for organizing itself that way. The first preview, an audience arrived and performed its end of a bargain none of us had in writing. I sat at the board and let my hands do what we trained for. Light up, light out, breathe, don't show, show more than you should. Arden's mid-piece solo landed like a confession. The house held its mouth open. She danced in a corridor I cut for her that made the air obey. At the blackout, applause failed its restraint. I thought, I could live inside this if the rent is only dignity. At the afterbeer, the theater turned into a cozy conspiracy, everyone's worst opinions softened by the fact that we'd survived. Julian's arm found the back of Arden's chair like muscle memory. He had that director's posture, the kind that tells a room he's always allowed. He told a story about early drafts and blessed failures, and kept saying my dancer like a man who hasn't learned to hear himself. On his wrist, a festival band peeked out from a cuff that wanted you to believe it had never known sweat. "Good light," he said to me finally, as if handing me a ribbon he'd kept in his pocket while we did all the work. "The less we see, the more they feel." "I believe the opposite," I said, and watched the SM flinch like I'd thrown a glass. "But I can dim on cue." Arden's foot brushed my ankle under the table, not a flirt, a reminder that the morning wanted both of us intact. We walked home because cabs after previews feel like theft. On the bridge, she slowed and leaned on the railing like a dancer pretending to be a civilian. "Okay," she said. "Ask the thing you want to ask." "Are you sleeping with him?" I said. "I am not a man who needs law to find a cross-examination." "No," she said, with a steadiness that made the river forget how to sound. "I let him believe wanting me is a good proxy for respecting my work. It is. And it isn't a good proxy for wanting me either. It's lazy." "Keep out of light," I said. "I asked you not to hit me with the big center in that solo," she countered. "You ignored me because you love me and what you can see." "You asked before this," I said. The sentence surprised both of us with its accuracy. She put her hand flat on my chest, her palm the right weight for my sternum. "I asked you way back at the audition I hate to remember," she said. "To stop looking at me like I'm going to fix what backstage broke in you 15 years ago. I don't want to be the only bright thing. It makes the rest of the room irresponsible." I wanted to argue. Instead, I nodded because the alternative was pretending not to hear. "We wrote rules. We are very good at rules. In bed, under the lamp we pretend is moonlight, we agreed to no private notes on each other's bodies that we didn't write. No choreographing desire like a rehearsal we could stop when bored. If the director wrote on a pass again, it would be because he was told to label his own water bottles like an adult. If I wanted to hit her with the big center, I needed to know whether it was for me or the piece. Heat didn't go away. That's the kindness of muscle memory. It keeps showing up even when brains go feral. She pulled me over her in that sideways way that makes the day retract its claws, and I let the look on her face be the only spotlight I followed. It was pornographic. It was greedy in the polite way people who pay rent together learn to adopt. After, she found the notch at the base of my throat and pressed her mouth to it like punctuation. "You're the only person I want telling the truth about where my body is," she said, and I let myself believe her for as long as it took to sleep. On closing week, letters arrived. We're in a profession that still loves paper when it feels like respect. A donor sent a note heavy enough to bruise a mailbox about the third section. A teenager wrote in purple ink that she wanted to live inside the queue where Arden catches the chair. Julian received a newspaper review carrying the kind of praise that makes men unsubscribe from self-awareness. He brought donuts and magnanimity to the green room and told us he knew we couldn't have done it without him. He thanked me for the light like a man, congratulating his mirror for showing up. On the last night, the crew taped a paper crown to his headset. It was gentle and deserved. I went up to the catwalk one final time, this weird church I believe in even when the sermon wanders. I stood under the glow tape where I'd scrawled "Don't burn it all down" after a different director stacked kindling under me years ago, and lit something I still go upstairs to sniff out. Halfway through the show, a lamp hiccuped, not a full blink, a micro stutter the way machines sometimes confess they're tired. I rode it, smoothed, rebalanced, sent auxiliary bleed from a side boom's pair I usually treat like gossip. No one noticed. On the rail, a note from the first day of hang flapped in the AC like a tiny flag. Keep head cool, heart hot, a joke, a map. After Bose, the company gathered on stage. Someone popped a cheap bottle and made it look fancy. Arden found me in the wing with her hair down and a smile that belonged to people who survived a story they didn't have to audition for again. "You hit me with the center," she said gently. "In that lyric," I admitted, "I couldn't help it." "I know," she said. "It made the right people weep." We cleaned the room. We pulled tape, wrapped cables into obedience, scrubbed our day off the floor. Julian hugged everyone like absolution and left in a car big enough for his need. On the ghost light, I taped the pass. The Sharpie bled slightly under my finger. I wrote under his note one small correction. "Keep out of light," it said. I wrote, "I will not." At home, the kitchen table received our exhausted accessories. The lanyard sat between my multi-tool and a bowl of keys we pretend are organized. Arden stood in the doorway and watched me watching it. "You keeping that?" she asked. "As a prop," I said, "for the next time someone says you belong in the dark." "The next time," she said, "you'll hit me with whatever light you want, but I get to tell you when to dim." "Deal," I said. We shook on it like the professional idiots we are. Then she slid her hand under my shirt and told me to keep the lights on, and I said I could do that, and the city went about its late shift while we set a new cue and called it ours.